Until I have reached full awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By means of beneficial actions such as generosity, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit beings. Until I have reached full awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By means of beneficial actions such as generosity, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit beings. Until I have reached full awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By means of beneficial actions such as generosity, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit beings. May all beings find happiness in the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the perfect happiness that is free from suffering. May they abide in great equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings find happiness in the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the perfect happiness that is free from suffering. May they abide from great equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings find happiness in the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the perfect happiness that is free from suffering. May they abide in great equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. Let's take a moment to settle in and inhabit this space, this moment, this space that we share with others. And beyond these walls, yet others. Leaving aside the busyness and the preoccupations that were foremost in our minds before we arrived here. The needs, the wants, the to-do lists. Settling in a way that's embodied and yet permeable. We're here together. And we're breathing. And the solidity of this body is helping us settle into the meditation posture and be present. And yet this body is constantly moving. Every bit of it is moving. And its solidity may be real in a certain dimension, but actually, it's just an idea. And so we're present and we're solid, yet we're moving and we're permeable. And by just settling in quietly, in openness and focus, by just paying attention to our breath, or sound, or thoughts, or nothing much, just settling in and focusing, we realize we can be all of these things at once. Solid, changing, permeable, open. I can see that you all know that it's a perfect time to stretch and move. Can we turn this down a notch, please? Is that possible? Is this a bit loud? It isn't? Okay. I can tell we're not a young crowd here. Is there anybody actually watching?
Yeah, some people do. I don't know how many right now.
Okay. Happy Boxing Day. Good morning. What a beautiful day. Is it okay if I mention the departure? Yeah. Just heartfelt, just holding you. Lori's dog Scruffalina died. And just holding that, knowing what it is to love another being. And Scruffalina was so very loved, and that was an unexpected departure. So grand dog, yeah. Yeah, you had a lot to do with loving on her and caring for her. So just thinking about that. Through various channels, I've managed to connect with a bunch of Buddhist chaplains, which has been awesome. Thank you, Zoom. And I was talking, and I really connected with a couple of them more closely and had a follow-up conversations. One of them was actually Tsering Ngudrup, who is working as a chaplain in the Boston area. He was one of Shamar Rinpoche's translators. Interesting activity he's got. And another one is a guy named Ivan, who's he's the Buddhist chaplain at Davidson College down in North Carolina, if you've ever heard of that, which I had more or less not, but you have heard of it? Oh yeah, it's a good school. And he just began this year, I believe. He hasn't been there a full year yet. And we were talking about Dharma. His particular lineage is Korean Zen. And he had a very rigorous seminary. He did 3 years of really intense seminary study, practice. It sounded like a super interesting program, 3 years plus. He's been doing this for years and years and years. He's got a very solid practice as well. And we were talking about the state of Dharma, in America, because we come from different lineages. His is another Mahayana Bodhisattva lineage, but the training is quite different. And because we got to talking about the problems that there have been with sanghas being created in the West without really understanding the teacher-student relationship and this and that, and leading in some groups to disappointment with teachers' behaviors and things like that. And what he came back to, and something that I had never really thought about, he said, most of us aren't going to go super deep into, most of the people who call themselves Buddhists or are interested in Buddhism are not going to go into practice in an extremely deep way that would require, because of the lifestyle in America, that would require doing retreats and really separating yourself from family and from work and, going off in a cave somewhere for several years. So what does it mean to be a Buddhist here in this country? And what he kept coming back to, and I hadn't thought about this and hadn't framed it like this. He kept coming back to the idea of the precepts. The precepts are what define us as Buddhists. So I meant to look up the etymology of that word precept, but I forgot to do it. I wonder, what do you think it means, precept? But it's these, we also call them vows or commitments, that when we become Buddhists, there are certain levels of commitments that we accept or engage in. And starting with refuge, this is a commitment. And precepts, he said, are what can frame our actions and frame our everyday lives, the commitments that we have to the path as defined by precepts. Give us this framework for moving forward as Buddhists in a Western society or in a busy society. So what are the precepts? I think most of us are familiar with those. There are the three essential levels, and the first level is the level of the vows of what we call individual liberation, which is kind of misleading, but the idea that if we want to move forward on the path and in a way where we are no longer creating negative karma, but instead are not engaging in harmful actions, but in refraining from those so that we can be more of benefit to others and be less detrimental to ourselves, the people around us, and the world around us, then there are some really fundamental vows that we are able to take, don't have to take. The first one, of course, is our refuge vow, which says that, okay, we are committing to going in the direction of enlightenment instead of continuing to circle around in our habitual confusion. And it doesn't have to be enlightenment with a big E. It can be awakening, everyday awakenings. I mean, we're not talking about, and most of us will not end up as at a Buddha level in this life. I don't want to limit your development here as practitioners, but I do want to say that, in all likelihood, we're not going to be big E enlightened in this life. So what is out there for us are incremental awakenings, right? And to do that, we need to watch our actions, because every deed that is harmful sort of covers, creates an incremental level of confusion, or reinforces the confusion that we already have. What confusion basically fundamentally is that? It's the confusion of ego and of putting ourselves first. So every time we engage in harmful activities, we think that this is an activity of some kind, and often we don't even think. It's just something that we're used to doing and that we don't question. And it's because we think we need this for us, for our own well-being or the well-being of our tribe. And this contributes to the machinery of the samsaric hamster wheel, right? There it goes. We're just keep on doing the same thing. So the precepts that essentially you take the refuge vow and you say, wait, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to put a little stick in that hamster wheel and see what happens. And then what if that stops? What else is there? Is there a way to jump off that and go explore? Is there another world out there that we can explore? And is there a world out there that we can explore in a way that's actually beneficial to ourselves and to others? And when we take refuge and we claim our confidence in awakening, in the path to awakening, in the brothers and sisters who can help us along that path, then we're saying, okay, I'm willing to jump off the hamster wheel when I can. And it doesn't have to be violent. It can be just like little steps. And this is I'm taking refuge in this, instead of taking refuge in confusion, which is what I've sort of done without really knowing it. Confusion and distraction, ignorance. And then we take that further and we say, okay, if I want to do that, how do I go about that? Well, I have to first commit to not harming. And we have these precepts, these vows that make it really clear to us what is harmful and what do I have to refrain from. And a lot of these are things that we do all the time without even thinking about it. Not killing. I think I've mentioned before that I've known Tibetans who have next to their plants a little spray thing of what they call bumen, which is bug medicine. but actually it kills them, right? It kills the aphids, it kills whatever, it kills whatever is crawling on their houseplants and threatening the houseplants. It's just a rote thing, like these are bad, my plants are good. But you have to think about that. Every time you're killing, you're killing. Most of us are not hunters. I know Buddhists who are. I know a lot of people who are. Most of us don't go around killing with a joyful heart, but we do it in a lot of ways without even thinking about it. And I've brought up in the past that when I had woodworm in my house in France, I had to deal with it. You know, there were woodworms and what, I don't know what they're called in English, but big things in my beams also that I had to deal with. And it was the house or the bugs, and you make a choice. But this is a conscious choice. It's something that you have to think about, and you know that you're transgressing, and you try to, confess or acknowledge what's going on. You make wishes for the beings whose lives have crossed your own in a way that's not acceptable, etc. And then the other precepts, some of the ones that we really do not pay attention to often are the precepts around speech. Not lying, not creating discord, idle speech, calumnious. Is that a word? Calumnious, is that a word? Calumny, hurtful. Well, you could say hurtful speech. All of these they're things that you kind of have to be careful about in a lot of ways. Especially blah blah is the easiest one to get to to get carried away in, right? Speech that actually goes nowhere. And you think of these precepts not as these are the fundamental precepts, and they're not something that impedes your actions, but they're just gentle guidelines that help you on your way to awakening. There you go. You say, okay, awakening is possible. Buddha is possible. Growing up is possible. And so we have choices. And what the precepts do, and this is after Ivan and I were talking, what came out was the precepts are telling us almost at every moment that we have a choice. We can, as Gendun Rinpoche would say, you can go up as a snake entering a bamboo, you can go up or you can go down. That's it. You don't have 15 other possibilities. The snake enters through a hole and it can go up or it can go down. And essentially the precepts are telling us that we have choices at every moment. And we do have choices at every moment. And these are guiding us in a certain direction. And then we go deeper into the precepts, into the vows, the commitments that go along with our practice. And not only do we refrain from harmful actions, but the next step up is we're going to do everything we can to be of benefit. And that's really kind of an eye-opener in our everyday lives. And I've been thinking about what Ivan and I were talking about for like a month now, and just saying, okay, what is it that I'm going to be? You wake up in the morning and you say, what am I doing today? What am I doing today that can be beneficial? What am I going to do to be helpful? What am I going to refrain from? Is there a way that I can be more helpful? And again, it's not rules, it's guidelines that we have choice, and it's telling us we have choices. And then we go another step into as a bodhisattva. So we have the bodhisattva vow, and our vow is to be of benefit. And then we go another step into the vows connected with Vajrayana, what we call Tibetan Buddhism, or what else is it called? I think there are other words for it. But these where we commit to doing certain visualization practices. Chenrezig, Avalokiteshvara, is one of them. If you commit to making that your life practice, then you're also committing to relating to your world in a different way. It's actually a commitment. And how do you relate to the world in a different way? Well, you're committing to seeing the goodness in everything. the fundamental goodness in everything by applying that practice to your daily life. That's a choice. And it's not our normal habit. Imagine that. Being able to wake up in the morning and seeing the pure dimension of everything, the pure dimension of everything that annoys you, of everything you're used to, everything that's become a habit, everything that's rote. There's actually a dimension to everything that is pure, that is awakened, that is luminous, that is at the same time solid and changing and permeable and open. That's all possible. Imagine that. And that's your commitment. And because we know that in our everyday lives, until we're at a certain level, we're going to break that commitment over and over and over again. That's part of the vow. There's sort of, we know but we're training, right? We're training. We know that it's going to be really hard in certain situations to see everybody as an enlightened being, every insect as an enlightened being, every yapping dog as an enlightened being, etc. But we're training and we're thinking, wow, is it possible at this moment to change, to shift gears, to change the way we're doing this? And this is what the precepts are. The precepts are not something that, once again, that hem us in, they're not constraints, they're choices. They show us that we have an option at every moment, an option not to harm, an option to be of benefit, and an option to recognize the underlying dimension of everything that we encounter as being open, as being pure, as being something that we're not programmed to see. Isn't that amazing that we have choices? And those choices are echoed in our meditation practice. When we sit down and meditate, every time we're aware of a thought, we have a choice. And meditation is telling us, okay, the teachings are telling us, sit, focus on your breath or whatever. And when the mind wanders, bring it back. Well, that's fundamental mindfulness, right? But every time we notice that the mind has wandered, we have a choice. Every time we notice that there's an emotion that arises, we have a choice. In all of these, there's a choice. And you have to ask yourself, what choices are going to bring the most benefit for yourself and for others? So I didn't even get into this. I'll do this next time if there's a next time. I didn't get into what I wanted to talk about, but I thought it was just so interesting, this conversation with Ivan about the precepts and about not seeing them as, seeing the precepts as really a way for Western society to engage in the Buddhist path as a major part of the Buddhist path, instead of this some ideal of enlightenment or of guru worship or of all these different ways we can go wrong. But precepts as being the path of choice, actually, just like the choices when we meditate. So let's do it. through this merit,
True omniscience.
then having overcome all harmful destructive forces, may I liberate sentient beings from the ocean of existence and its turbulent waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. May the most precious mind of awakening that has not yet dawned now arise. Once arisen, may it never decline. May it continue to increase evermore. Thank you. Sorry about the barking dog. That was an experiment.